You were the second owner. Third owner, and
yeah, Stan Huntley, John Patterson, and Pete LaMarca.
And the molds originally were made in England and came over here.
To the best of my knowledge,
yeah,
I had 2 or 3 long conversations with Stan Huntley before he passed away, and I believe that the original owners brought the molds from England. Now, I don't believe the molds were produced in the United States, but I have really no proof of that. All I know is that Stan Huntley probably, as I said earlier, probably produced more Arkley kits than anybody.
Any idea how many he may have done?
He probably made more Arkley kits than anyone. I don't know how many John Patterson, who was the second owner, produced, but he bought the business from Stan, and like I say, Stan had a facility up in Portland, and he was into racing, selling British car parts, and he probably did more business than anybody. I had many conversations with Stan before he passed away, and that's the indication that I got. So, anyway.
Is this the only set of molds there are?
To the best of my knowledge, these are the ones that came from England, unless Stan made these. But Stan bought the business from a couple of investors. I don't know if they were lawyers or doctors or whatever. This is a story he related to me, that these people brought the molds over from England, and they never really did anything. I think they saw the car in England, probably met John Britton, who designed this car, and bought the molds and brought them over here. Okay, now we're going to need the help.
Okay.
I think maybe if we can just get it down and just get it down easy.
There we go.
Okay, just a second there.
About what year were the molds made?
Well, John Britton designed the car in 1970. I don't know when these molds were made. You can tell just by looking at them. They've been around for a while. But
oh, okay.
This is the part that goes underneath it.
Okay, well, we put that there in the bed.
Dan bought the business from John Patterson, and of course he got the molds, and then I bought the business from John Patterson. So I don't know how long these molds have been in the United States. Probably 30 years at least, because the car was designed and built in England in 1970.
So, about what year did you buy them?
I've had it for over 10 years.
About 10 years?
Yeah.
About how many cars did you make out of it?
I have no idea.
Oh, make a guess.
Probably half a dozen, maybe.
Oh, okay.
3 or 4, something like that. I didn't do a lot of business.
Not hundreds.
No, heavens no. Maybe 3 or 4, I can't remember. But hasn't been active in the last 5, 6, 7 years. You know, after British Car went out of business, it was really kind of difficult because the internet wasn't what it is today, and it was kind of difficult finding a media to advertise them in. I tried Kit Car magazine, which brought no results whatsoever, and Crossroads Motorsports, I believe they bought British Car, but they were into a lot of things, and I advertised it there for maybe a couple of years, but it didn't bring too much response, if any. British Car was the one that really brought a lot of response.
The molds look like they're in pretty decent shape for being so old.
When I bought the molds, it was kind of interesting because I went to the Kit Car show up at Knott's Berry Farm, and I met these two men that were producing the Ferrari California Kit Car.
Yeah.
And we got talking, and they were in Escondido, building the car in Escondido. And I asked them I told them who I was and what I had, and they referred me and gave me the name of the fiberglass fabricator that they were using for that car.
Oh.
It was kind of interesting because they were in Escondido, They lived in Arizona. They both went to Arizona State, where I graduated. Anyway, we had a nice conversation. They said, well, we have a great guy in the San Diego area that produces these parts for this Ferrari California. And if you saw the movie Ferris Bueller.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, the car that I think was pushed off out of the garage was the kit car, not the real
Not
thing.
really, sure.
Yeah, so, and the car they produced was absolutely fantastic. I mean, until you start recognizing that the trunk lid was from a midget, or rather an MGB, and there were parts from Volkswagen.
That's only who knew.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting, and but they're really neat guys. And so anyway, I met Steve, and I can't think of his last name, who has a fiberglass company over in, he's in San Marcos now, and he produced the kits for me. And that's what I would do, is I'd load them in the back of my truck. He would make a set or two, and I'd bring them back home and store the molds. And anyway, he did an excellent job. And one of the things, I don't know if I told Mike, that when I bought these, Steve came up to the house and he looked at them, and he's again said they were in pretty good shape, but he did some work to, like, the hood where there was a little bit of a dip or something. You know, he smoothed it out, and so they come out really nice. There's no waves or dips or anything like that.
Great.
The back section is pretty simple, but you know, like a bug eye, that one great big piece is, yeah, it's kind of anyway.
So here's the big question: did you ever make one for yourself?
Yeah.
And you drove it around?
No. I never completed. I sold. What I did was, I bought, like I said, people were calling me from all over, and I received a phone call one night, and the guy says, started talking about Arkleys, you know, like, it led me to believe that he was interested. And then towards the end of the conversation, he says, well, I have an Arkley, and I want to sell it. And I says, well, I'm not a buyer, I'm a builder.
Yeah. I don't buy my own stuff back.
So anyway, he says, well, I bought this car, and he told me all about it. And I says, okay. I said, well, I'm not interested. And a few months later, he called me again. And at the time I was working, and I said, I'm going to be in Los Angeles next week. Give me your address, and if I have time, I'll come up and look at your car. And I went up there and I looked at the car, and it was probably the nicest Arkley ever built. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of them. I've seen a few, but this car looked like it came out of a factory. There was no transition. I don't know. Do you have an Arkley?
No.
Okay, well,
Never heard of them until this came up.
Okay, well, when the door closes, according to the instructions, you adjust the door outward to compensate for the thickness of the fiberglass for that back section.
To go over it, yeah.
This car wasn't that way. It was smooth. There was no transitions. Whoever built this car spent a lot of money. So as soon as I saw this car, I bought it. I said, because this will be a great show car.
Oh, yeah.
So it finally ended up in, I just sold it last year to a fella who has a couple Arkleys and Sprites and things in Massachusetts.
Wow.
And as soon as he saw it, I got the same impression. And when he received it, it's like, you know, somebody spent a lot of money. They powder coated this. They fabricated, you know, the back section with a trunk lid, so to speak, a compartment. They did a heck of a job, just an unbelievable job.
They took a nice car and made it a perfect one.
Yeah, exactly. It did not look like a kit car, because you've seen kit cars where, you know, they just don't.
You can tell they're a kit car, sure.
You can tell it.
Oh, yeah.
No, this car looked factory built in the
Wow.
truest sense of the word.
Come right on over that way. We'll get it on this rail. Gotta be careful with this one. Now let me get out and look at it,
Yeah.
and I'll figure out where I want to load it. How.
I'm going to take a look and see if I can find that other mold.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it is. We'll get it.
The fiberglass guy was charging?
Yeah, he was charging me a little over $400. But this is going back 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, but that was for both pieces then.
For both? Well, plus the little.
Yeah, the little. So he was making all the fiberglass for that kind of money. So you add a little bit for inflation, and you know about what this the manufacturing cost is.
And this is all hand-laid fiberglass. This isn't what do you call it, chopper gun. And he lives in Escondido, and occasionally I run into him. And before, well, say 5 or 6 years ago, I had some inquiries for some parts, and I called him up and I asked him, I said, what would the current price be? And he says, well, with, what do you call it, the increase of petroleum.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Cost
of product is
he
more
said
for everything.
It wasn't that much. I think he was too realistic, or too unrealistic. I think, he says, let me know at the time and we'll price it. But when I was buying them, they were like $450 a set. And, even if he charged $600, that would have been a bargain.
Yeah, it's still very, very reasonable, that kind of thing to do that. There's an awful lot of, not so many sprites, bug eyes that will convert, but there's a lot of the MG midgets out that are really getting pretty rough, and these things would still work awfully good on them.
Oh, yeah. And, I've had people inquire about just buying the front section.
Sure.
And in a way, that is a pretty good option, because removing the back section of the car, if you do it yourself, and I've done it with a cold chisel and a sawzall, it's a lot of work. And, you can take it to somebody with a, what do you call it, what kind of welder?
Plasma cutter.
Plasma cutter. They could probably do it in 15 minutes. Where it took me a day, at least a day to do it.
Yeah, but Pete, because you were doing all that stuff, that's why you're still healthy at 80.
Yeah.
I couldn't walk up that hill. I drove up it, but I couldn't walk up it.
I was puffing.
So was I, just watching you.
So anyway, it's, I've told everybody, I says, well, the real work is in the back section.
Sure.
And like I said earlier, the car that I bought, that was the real work. I mean, when you saw the back section and how it fit around the back, where the top fits, and the doors, I said, my Lord, I says, whoever did this, they must have recessed the metal.
That or cut the form and brought it in and just took the metal off under it or something. Yeah, there's ways to do it. But
I had a British car fella that did restoration work, and he was up here looking at my MG, and he saw the car, and he says, he started looking at it. He says, do you have a magnet? And he wanted to see where the metal ended. He says, he was telling me how they cut in and did this. I mean, he was impressed with that car. And but anyway, I went to a good owner in Massachusetts, a real enthusiast like you guys, and which is the important thing. And
this is not going to be wasted for sure. It'll get a good home.
Sounds corny, but John Britton is probably really happy.
Well, I'll tell you, I learned in experimental airplanes, the best buy you can get is to find somebody that loves to build, not fly.
Yeah.
They'll build the best airplane in the world, and then they don't want it. They love the building, and it's the same with the car. The man that sold you his car, he had to love to build it. Otherwise, you couldn't do that kind of quality.
Yeah. Well, see, that's my background. I was a furniture maker for many years, and I built furniture. And
quality then.
I like detail.
Sure.
And I had when my eyes were still good, I really had a sense for detail. And when I saw that car, I said, this is absolute perfection.